The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is brought to you by Clinica Sierra Vista.
Welcome back to the 17 News at Sunrise podcast, where we share your news on your schedule.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
Good morning, everyone. It is 5 a.m. Thanks for waking up with us on a Finally Friday. I'm Maddie Jansen alongside Elena Russ.
All right, turning now to our Crime Watch. We begin with your 17 Crime Watch this morning. Intense moments for local students and their parents just as they're getting ready for summer break. Independence High School put on lockdown yesterday after threats were made toward the campus. Several agencies launching an investigation once they got word of the threat, but it was ultimately deemed not credible. Principal Guillermo Alvarado sent out an email urging parents to encourage their students to report any suspicious behavior. The school district says there will be additional security on campus today.
Following up on a fire that broke out Tuesday night, you may remember these photos of crews dousing flames in Wasco at the Valley Rose Golf Course Clubhouse. An arrest has been made for arson. Luis Villarreal is accused of burning and vandalizing not only the clubhouse, but 3 different schools in the city. Deputies say all of the incidents happened in the past week.
All right, now we're going to head up to the California Capitol, and a bill that would make human trafficking of a minor a serious felony is one step closer to becoming law. Senate Bill 14, authored by Bakersfield Senator Shannon Grove, unanimously passed in the state Senate yesterday. Currently, human trafficking is not defined as a serious felony under California law, but this bill would change that, making it a strike offense under California's 3 strikes law. The bill will next be heard in the Assembly Public Safety Committee.
And making news around the nation, the clock is rapidly ticking down to a potential debt ceiling default. NBC's Bree Jackson's in Washington with the latest from both sides.
We're just days away from defaulting on the debt ceiling.
The only way to move forward is with a bipartisan agreement, and I believe we'll come to an agreement.
We'll continue working hard, and I think we've got time. We're going to get this done.
Both sides say talks are progressing, but it's slow progress. One of the biggest hangups, Republicans' demand for tougher work requirements for people who receive food stamps and other government assistance.
We have serious issues still to work out and come to terms with, and that's going to take some time.
Some Democrats argue the GOP is holding the economy hostage and worry about possible concessions the president may make.
Because they have concluded that if we crash the economy, it will benefit them politically. That's a sick way of thinking.
This follows fresh concerns about the harm of failing to reach an agreement by the June 1st deadline. Just this week, a top credit rating agency warned of a potential downgrade to the U.S.'s AAA rating. President Biden tried to ease concerns, stressing default is not an option.
The American people deserve to know that the Social Security payments will be there. The Veterans Hospitals remain open.
Members of the House left town for the Memorial Day weekend, but were told to be ready to return if a deal is reached. And Progressive Caucus Chair Pramila Jayapal said Democrats were told the earliest they would have to return to Washington this weekend is Sunday. In Washington, Bree Jackson, NBC News.
President Joe Biden and Speaker of the House, Bakersfield Congressman Kevin McCarthy, have been negotiating for weeks. But if they cannot make a deal in the coming days, can the president just raise the debt limit himself without Congress? Some Democrats are now asking him to consider it, invoking the 14th Amendment. Here's NBC's Hallie Jackson to explain how it's never been done before, and even the Treasury Secretary is wondering if it would work.
Every day, the U.S. gets closer and closer to running out of cash to pay its bills. And if the president and congressional leaders can't get to a deal to get those debts paid, there's this really historic and pretty controversial move the president could make.
I have been considering the 14th Amendment.
The president referring to a 150-year-old amendment put into place right after the Civil War. It's not overall related to finance. Its intention was to protect people who were previously enslaved. But there's this section inside the 14th Amendment saying the validity of the public debt of the United States shall not be questioned. That's important because now some experts think that phrase gives the president the ability to go around Congress to pay the country's bills, even though typically it's Congress that has the power of the purse.
I would hope that the president will take executive action if the House refuses to do its job.
It's not a slam dunk, far from it.
It's legally questionable whether or not that's a viable strategy.
No president has ever tried to use the 14th Amendment to prevent a debt default. In other words, to make sure the U.S. does pay its bills.
The problem is it would have to be litigated.
And experts agree, saying if the president does try this, it probably will get tied up in court.
He's quite right that he would almost certainly be sued. And I think he is concerned that there would be uncertainty, that it would unsettle the markets.
But President Biden has made one thing clear.
Default is not an option. We will not default.
Meantime, one of the leaders of an extremist group that surged at the Capitol on January 6th was sentenced to 18 years behind bars yesterday. Stuart Rhodes is the founder of the far-right anti-government militia group Oath Keepers. He was found guilty of seditious conspiracy, obstruction of an official proceeding, and tampering with documents. Speaking before his sentencing, he said he was a political prisoner. The judge responded, asserting that Rhodes is, quote, an ongoing threat and peril to this country. This is the longest sentence for any January 6 defendant to date. In your 17 Court Watch this morning, an 18-year-old accused of a wrong-way crash that killed a woman told police he didn't do anything wrong. This, according to new court documents obtained by 17 News. The crash happened last month on Campus Park Drive. A passenger in the car of the 18-year-old Kareem Rayad told police that he was driving like a maniac before the crash, running stop signs, swerving into opposing lanes, and reaching speeds of 120 miles per hour. The report also says Rayad told police he got a speeding ticket the day he bought that car, just 6 days before the crash, which killed 66-year-old Gayla Price. Just last year, Rayad had his left arm amputated after another crash, that time on a mini dirt bike. Well, there is some good news from this snowmelt. California regulators say the state is unlikely to run short of electricity this summer, thanks to new power sources and a wet winter that filled reservoirs to restart hydroelectric power plants shuttered during the drought. Officials say more than 8,000 megawatts of new wind, solar, and battery power will be coming online by September. California normally has more than enough electricity to power the homes and businesses of its more than 39 million people, but the electrical grid has trouble when everyone turns on their air conditioners at the same time during those heat waves, like we saw with those blackouts for hundreds of thousands of homes in the smoky summer of 2020.
All right, let's talk now about some news around the state and Governor Gavin Newsom's crusade against climate change. The governor offering Californians an update yesterday on his target to ultimately transition our state to a 100% clean energy state. 17's Capitol correspondent Eitan Wallace takes us through the new data showing how we're faring so far.
Well, the governor stresses the state's green energy transition is already well underway. He came to this Bay Area battery manufacturing plant to make that point, touting the accomplishments the state has made while sharing what more California needs to do to achieve his climate goals.
Hi, Gavin.
Governor Gavin Newsom spending part of his Thursday touring the Maxion facility in Richmond, where 250 employees work to create battery storage and provide renewable energy for the grid.
These are good paying jobs. These are career opportunities.
Opportunities, he says, will help the state achieve his climate goal to go 100% carbon neutral by 2045 and ban the sale of new gas-powered cars by 2035. As of today, he says 1.5 million cars on California roads are considered zero-emission vehicles. That, as new data from the California Energy Commission shows in 2021, the state saw a 2% uptick in usage of renewables from the year before. In total, 59% of the state's electricity came from zero-carbon sources, of which 37% were renewables, 10.8% nuclear, and 10.7% large hydropower.
We've already transitioned. We're well under the way in this transition.
As part of that, the governor shared this 21-page updated plan that goes hand in hand with his announcement last week seeking to reform the state's environmental permitting and lengthy review process. He argues the process has slowed down projects that could help get more reliable and affordable renewable energy on the grid.
We need to move with speed and scale. The world we invented, process-laden world we invented, is now competing against us. We have to accelerate our transition.
But Republicans caution against accelerating too fast without first having a chance to evaluate what the plan could mean for California, including for thousands of people in the Central Valley who work directly or indirectly in the oil economy.
And I'm not saying that we shouldn't do wind energy. I'm just saying that once you set the trajectory forward, then the process that we're doing with the governor on board, I urge that we do it right, that we put a process in place that allows us to do the impacts and make sure that they're not negative impact.
The governor not backing down.
When we lay out markers, we achieve them.
And the governor says as California's green energy transition moves forward, he intends to make additional updates on the state's progress throughout his second term. Reporting in Richmond, Eitan Wallace, 17 News.
The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is a production of KGET and Nexstar Media Group. For more on all of the headlines in today's show, head to kget.com.